A tzadikah from Eretz Yisrael sent me this, and few beautiful chidushim. She says that the Sdei Chemed in his Sefer Meches Shabbat, which he wrote over 100 years ago, in those times the world was very different. Forget about just iPhones, iPads, internet. Forget about that stuff. Talk about even the look of people. The average person, whether he was Jew or non-Jew, was more modest than most of the Rebbitzins in the world. You look at pictures from 100 years ago of non-Jews on the beach. They wore dresses bigger than somebody that's 300 pounds. They were huge dresses. Why? For modesty reasons. The average Jew or non-Jew covered their hair. Some Jews chose to cover their hair with wigs. But the wigs of 100 years ago, 150 years ago, were very, very different, to say the least, from the wigs of today. I have some pictures of the wigs of 150 years ago, 200 years ago, and they really look worse than the stuff you clean the floor with. If you're a cleaning person in a building and you have this mop, the mop has these strings on it. The wigs of 150 years ago looks worse than that, because at least the mop is single color. But the wigs of 150 years ago look worse than that. But still, there was a big debate of whether even those wigs were allowed, because of the machloket that started about 400 years ago, where one of the Chachamim said that the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat that talks about wigs was saying that, woman that has missing patches in her head for some type of illness or whatever happened, she could fill up the space by putting a hair there. But the Gemara also says she would put a hat on top of it. So yeah, you could wear a wig, but a hat on top of it. But this Chacham 400 years ago says, yeah, but if it says that, maybe you're also referring that she could just wear the wig without the hat. And that's been a machloket for the last 400 years. Needless to say, 150 years ago, at the time of Sdei Chemed, even though the wig looked worse than a mop, still there was a debate whether it's even allowed. So the Sdei Chemed says the following. He writes a question. Mipnei ma magefa ba la'olam? Why does a plague come to the world? Plague, corona. Why does it come to the world? The Sdei Chemed writes, Magefa, Rashet Tevot, each one of the letters, Mipnei Gilui Pe'at Anashim, because of the wigs of the women. Plagues come to the world because of wigs, he says. So here you see that already 150 years ago, Chachamim were not only did they said that wigs are not good before the whole avodah zarah and all that stuff, but they said that it's not only not good, but it could cause harm to the whole nation. Harm to the whole nation. Now, the Shulchan Aruch and Orach Chaim 75 2 with Mishnah Berurah says that Kisui Rosh, the covering of a woman's head, has to be even inside the house, and it's forbidden for the man, including the husband, to recite the Shema Yisrael or other prayers in front of a woman including his wife, if her hair is exposed. Meaning that the Sdei Chemed understood the magnitude of a woman that covers her hair with a wig to such an extent that he said, listen, you that are wearing wigs that look worse than a mop are still could be confused. Could confuse certain people to think that it's real hair, and is technically still going against the rule that he understands of what it is, and most of the Chachamim understand what it is, and it creates damage. What kind of damage? It's not just damage for when you go outside, even inside. Why? Because the Orach Chaim says that if you walk around with a wig, even your own husband cannot pray next to you. Now, Rav Tzion Abba Shaul wrote otherwise. He says that if it is only your wife and she's wearing a wig inside the house, then you're allowed to pray next to her. It's your wife. Other women, obviously, no. Now, of course, this can create a lot of debates between people. No, but the this, but the that. The point I'm trying to make is not go into the whole wig debate again. We've already done enough about that. The whole point is that if this type of bomb doesn't affect you and make you think twice before you wear a wig, that means there's a little bit of a problem with your hashkafa. Why? Because regardless of who said it's okay, whether it's be the Lubavitcher Rebbe Alav Shalom or a few other Chachamim that mention it's okay, regardless, you cannot just go and ignore the Sdei Chemed, the Gaon Mivilna, Yonatan ben Uziel, Arav Ovadia, and many other Gdolim that said it's 100% forbidden, to such an extent that you can't even pray next to a woman that wears a wig. Like, that's the thing. Ashkafa Yehudit is not about, oh wait, but my rabbi said it's okay, so therefore I'm just going to do whatever I want. Ashkafa Yehudit is not just about doing whatever you want and finding the right rabbi to tell you what you want. Ashkafa Yehudit is to understand, wait a minute, what is Da'at Torah? What is what I'm doing? And how much is the, let's say for example, if I'm wearing a wig, let's say, but there are many Gdolim that are no more nor less, let's say, than the Gdolim that I listen to, that say that not only is it forbidden, but it could bring a magefa, it could bring a plague. Like, they're not just saying, oh, it's allowed, it's asur. It's not just it's allowed, and the other guy says, no, it's not allowed. They're saying it's so bad, it can bring a plague, meaning you could hurt other people. If you care about Am Yisrael, that's going to make you think twice. Not because you agree or disagree, but just because you have the right mindset. You say, wait a minute, you know what? My rabbi says it's okay. Fine. But my rabbi is the same or less than the Sdei Chemed, than Yonatan ben Uziel, than Shulchan Aruch, than many others. He's not better than them. He's also a big rabbi, right? And they're saying, okay, no problem, do what you want, but I'm just letting you know what you're doing is going to bring a magifa. A person that has the right mindset says, you know what? Even though I can technically do it because I'm listening to my Rav, obviously excluding the whole issue of Avodah Zarah, I can technically do it, I can technically be permitted to do it, but it's not worth it. Why? I have permission to do it. Yeah, I have permission to do it, but it's not worth it. Why? Because just in case I'm allowed to do, but it would still bring a magefa. It would still hurt other people. It's not worth it. It's not worth it for that. That shows you have Avat Yisrael. Now, I'm not saying that every woman, Chas v'Shalom, that is wearing a wig doesn't love Am Yisrael. Don't think that way. I'm talking about the people that are listening to this right now and want to get to a point higher than where they are right now. Wherever you are right now, you want to get higher. You're married, you have a Ashkenazi minag, a Lubavitch minag, you wear a wig, and let's say you somehow managed to get a wig that's actually not part of Avodah Zarah, which according to our research is impossible, but let's say you did, because let's say you shaved your own head and made it into a wig, which also is not possible, but that's a different story. Let's say you did all that. Fine. Fine. Right? Let's say it's not Avodah Zarah. There is Chachamim that are not only saying it's not good to wear a wig that looks like a mop. Forget about the wigs of today that no one says it's allowed, including the Lubavitcher Rebbe, including Moshe Feinstein, including the ones that allowed it. They're still not saying today's wigs are allowed, especially when they're longer than the exile and look more real than real hair. No one says the wigs of today are allowed. I'm talking about the ones that from 100 years ago. There's ones that say, there's Chachamim that say that the wigs from 100 years ago are so bad, apparently, for Klal Yisrael, they could bring a Magifah. Now, if I was a woman that wants to get higher with my Emunah, Bitachon, Hashkafa, Avodat Hashem, and so on, I'm simply going to say, I got to reconsider. I got to reconsider whether I'm going to continue wearing a wig or not. Why? Because maybe, even though it's allowed, according to my Rebbe, it could still bring damage. It could still bring damage. And that's what the Chachamim did. All of their days is not just learn books, not just do mitzvot, but also make sure that their mindset was as clear as possible when it comes to the Avodat Hashem, but also when it came to the mitzvah of Imlachta et chavercha alecha. You made your friend, your fellow, like a king over you, meaning you considered him even more significant than you. You cared more about your fellow than you care about yourself. I like the wig, but I like you more. I like the wig, but I like you more. And because of you, fellow Jew, I'm not going to wear it. And this also pertains to other things too. That's part of Avodat Hashem. It's not just about doing what's allowed and staying away from what's not allowed. Is that the Hashkafa Yehudit also has to do with what should I do in order to perfect my servitude to Hashem, but also in order to perfect my relationship with Klal Yisrael. That's why it says, "Ocheach tochiach et amitecha velo tisa alav chet." You must rebuke your fellow, but don't come by way of sin. Meaning, rebuke your fellow and tell him or her the truth, but don't embarrass him, make fun of him, make a mockery out of it. Don't make a sin as a result of the rebuke. Make sure that you do it in a certain way that he or she is going to get the point, but most importantly, you are not making a sin as a result of it. Or they're not going to make a bigger sin as a result of it. You have to learn how to communicate. And if you don't know how to, don't do it. Have somebody else do it. It's this guy from Florida. He knows how to do it pretty good. Send his lectures.